morning and welcome to BeTheBestChiropractor.com. I'm Dr. Michelle Wendeling, and today we are actually going to talk about money. And I know for some people that gets them really excited, yay, money! And for most people, it makes them very, very uncomfortable because they're very sensitive about the money subject. In our culture, we don't talk about money, we don't discuss money, we don't bring it up. So a lot of people, that's uncomfortable. So wherever you are on the spectrum, this particular sharing is going to help you and it's going to serve you in your life. We're specifically going to talk about money as it relates to being in practice as a chiropractor, because as most of you know, my biggest passion is to make sure that chiropractors can succeed in practice, not struggle and not be stressed and love their job every single day. So in regards to that, that's how we're going to discuss money. All right, awesome. So let's get going. So many chiropractors that I work with, I find that they're delegating the money stuff to either their office staff, their office manager, and they have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. Lots and lots of chiropractors don't know what their expenses are. They don't know how much money they're making on a daily basis. They have no idea what's going on in the money world. They just show up, they adjust a bunch of patients, they love it, and they go home, and they have no idea what's going on. And while this sounds really dreamy to a lot of us, that, oh, I don't even have to think about the money, it's just going to come rolling in. Unfortunately, there's lots of bumps in the road that occur because of this. And so we're going to talk about how to eliminate those bumps in the road so you can keep more money in your pocket. Because after all, that's the currency the world we live in, literally, is going to be the money in your pocket, not the money going out that door. So the first question you need to ask yourself is, how much money do I need? So there's 3 questions and 3 thoughts we're going to discuss today. And the first one, how much do I need? You all have overhead. We all have overhead. We all have a salary that we need in order to take care of ourselves, feed ourselves, keep a roof over our head, and have a little fun, right? Don't tighten those purse strings up so much that you don't have time to have fun. Make sure you're out there getting some fun in. I recommend traveling at least every 3 months. So my husband and I, we take off and go to a beach or take a road trip or rent an RV or whatever every 3 months, because I think it's really, really, really important to go on those vacations and do those things. So you need enough salary that you can do those things. The other thing that needs to be part of your salary is retirement. At some point, I know you can't fathom it right now because you love seeing patients every day, but at some point you're going to want to stop seeing patients. You're going to want to go to that retirement world. So make sure you're putting money away for that as well. And then of course you need to figure out what you need for your overhead in your office, right? Even if we own our own building and we have no student loans and there's no loans out there, we still have utilities, we still are paying our staff, we still have insurance that we have to pay and licensing fees and all of that. So I want you to get familiar with what it is you actually need. So one way to do this, so the exercise I usually give my mentees is to fill out an Excel spreadsheet, and across the top you're going to put all the different months. So you're going to January through December across the top, and then on the column on the side you're going to go ahead and put every single thing that you find on your bank statement. So it sounds a little tedious, but it's really worth it once you get it done. So you're going to pull out January's bank statement, you're going to take a look, and every single line item is going to go on the side of that Excel spreadsheet with the amount that you paid and what month it was paid in. Once you do that, I recommend, if this is the first time you've looked at your finances this way, I recommend you do it for a minimum of 6 months, if not for an entire year. You're going to be amazed at what you're spending your money on and what is unnecessary for you to spend your money on. So that's the second question you're asking is, how much, how much money, second question, how much money, how much money are you spending? What are you spending your money on, and what do you actually need versus what do you don't need? So once you get that Excel spreadsheet and you line everything out, I want you to go through every single line item and make the decision, is this something that I need to continue paying, or is this something I don't need to continue paying? Just this simple exercise, I worked with a chiropractor just a while ago, about 6 months ago. And what we discovered, because he had $1 million practice, he was doing really great, but he wasn't feeling like he was keeping the amount of money in his pocket that he thought he was earning and they thought he should still have. So we did this little exercise, and by the end of it, he ended up with almost 10 grand more a month in his pocket. So that's $100,000 bonus that is going to continue to bonus him every single year because of the line items that we found in his finances by cleaning out his financial closet and discovering that a lot of those things were unnecessary. So, he'd been in practice 30 years, so his financial closet was stuffed full of a lot of things that were not serving him, that he wasn't using anymore. So, you might be wondering what those things were. I mean, how can someone possibly spend an extra 10 grand a month and not even know it? Well, everything added up. So there were some magazine subscriptions, and this is true in most of the offices that I've audited. Magazine subscriptions or subscriptions to websites or membership programs they're not using. A big one is a practice management companies. A lot of chiropractors will sign up for a practice management company and it's a monthly fee. And if you're using it and it's helping you and it's building your business, that's one thing. But if you're not using it, a lot of chiropractors just continue to pay it. So I've seen practice management companies that hit your bank account for $650 every month, up to $1,500 every month. And they're not using those skills. They're not using that information. They haven't even opened the emails of those practice management companies. So by snipping those out, because you're not using them, it saves you a ton of money. So leases as well, not business leases, equipment leases. So a lot of chiropractic offices, to save money, will lease the equipment that they're using, their ultrasound unit, their stem unit. They'll lease their vibration units, whatever it is they're using. They're gonna do a lease on those instead of purchasing them outright. And then much of us chiropractors, we tend to like the next shiny bauble, whatever that is. So you start with a lease on this really cool piece of equipment, you use it on all your patients, and it's awesome and amazing. And then there's something else. And so then you get a lease on that thing. And so the one thing that you were using starts to collect dust. It's not being pulled out as much. And yet the lease is still hitting your bank account every single month. So take a look at those things, snip those things in the butt. So there's, when you see a machine lease like that, typically what I tell my mentees is to take a look at it. Do you want to re-implement it into your practice? One of the most common ones, and I'm sure most of you have seen these, are nutrition testing things, where they test the galvanic response of your skin to see if you need a certain supplement or another supplement. And it sounds really great in the beginning, and then chiropractors start losing interest in that, either because they don't want to sell supplements or it takes too much time or whatever reason that is. So when they start losing interest in that, they just kind of set it aside. And because it's set aside, they forget about it, and they forget that they're paying $150 or $200 a month every month to keep the computer system up. So should they ever want it, should they ever need it, they can access it. And I find most of the time you can just snip those, cut those leases, cut those websites you're not paying for, cut those memberships. Now, please don't cut your state association membership. Those are memberships that are serving you, because those are the people fighting for your rights, making sure that your scope of practice is protected, and the legislator and all that. So stay a member of, whatever state associations that are serving you. Make sure you stay a member of those. But most memberships, I have chiropractors who have been members of networking groups, but they haven't gone in 6 or 8 months. So those aren't serving them. So that's the other question. So you first want to know what you need money-wise, and then you want to know what you don't need and what you can snip. And then the third question is going to be, how much money are you making? Right? And most of us can't answer that question. So you want to know at the end of every single day how much money you're making. It's a great idea to take a peek before you leave the office. What were my collections for today? It's so satisfying. Even if it's not the number you think it should be, it's still incredibly satisfying to see what that number is. If you've ever been a bartender or waitress or any of those things, you know what it feels like to walk out with a load of cash in your pocket, right? That's part of the reason I love cash practices, because we get paid for exactly what it is we did that day on that day. We don't have to wait for our money or chase it down or anything. But even if you're an insurance practice, look at what your collections were And then you can start to evaluate things. You know, I did this many of this kind of service and it made this much money. And that particular machine is costing me this much money. So then you start to look at that business system and say, you know, is it really serving me to continue to do this nutrition testing because I'm not selling supplements, or my patients aren't getting a lot out of it, or it's not increasing patient retention like I thought it would. It's, you know, whatever it is. So you want to look at each of those systems, look at the amount of money you're making in the system, look at the cost of the system, and compare the two, right? It's just simple math. You just do some math and compare the two. So I find a lot of times that once this happens, the practice cleans everything up. There's more money in the pocket of the chiropractor, so they're lighter, they're relaxed, they're not so financially stressed. They certainly aren't resentful when they go to work anymore. They love going to work every day because they know what money they're making. They know that their treatment is making a difference in their patient lives because we don't question that. We know that's a thing. And then we also know we're getting paid well for it. So that combination makes a magical setup. So the last thing I want you guys to think about is when you get to that place. And so my dad used to always use the analogy of you lower the river, which is your overhead. So you lower the river and you raise the bridge. That way there's more space between the river and the bridge. It's much less likely that you'll be underwater. There are so many chiropractors that reach out to me and that I'm able to help, and that it hurts my heart to know there's so many of you out there that are struggling, and that what's happening isn't that they just don't have any money, but it's that they're seeing their practice slowly decline. So, you know, one year it made, you know, $60,000 more, and then the following year it dropped another $40,000, and then this year, you know, they lost another $20,000 to $30,000, and they don't know why. They don't know why their income is slowly declining, because they're still seeing new patients, they still have regular patients, they seem as busy, they feel as busy as they were, and yet they're just not making the money. And as overhead goes up, because we know that's a thing, right? Overhead goes up. That's why we have to raise our prices. That's why we have to keep an eye on all of these things we talked about today, our expenses as well as our income. And it's just not balancing. And so they're slowly leaking. They're slowly hemorrhaging money. So the best thing for those practices is twofold. One is to look at the money, look at where the money's going, make sure that the money's only going places it needs to go, and that they cut out all unnecessary expenses. And then look at their patient education, their patient referrals, retention, and all of those things, and see if there's something to be done there. So this week we talked about how to lower your overhead. Okay. And so that's lowering the river. And next week, we're going to talk about how to raise the bridge. So if you do have a practice that's struggling or that's not quite making the amount of money that you want it to make, tune in next week. We're going to talk about how to increase your income without overburdening your patient, without overburdening your staff, and without overburdening yourself. So you can be the best chiropractor for your patients, for your practice, and for yourself. So take a look at that money, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.